Chris Beckman. I'm the corporate chaplain for Ebenezer. You may know that Ebenezer is basically 100 communities that make up our family, all the way from Grand Marais up in the north to Des Moines, Iowa in the south. And we're filming live this morning from Cherrywood Point in Plymouth, and we want to thank their staff and their community for supporting us on this day. This is a series of devotions and reflections that we've been creating during this time of COVID. This is reflection 38 in our series, and we're hoping that you're finding this meaningful and helpful. In Minneapolis, when I lived in Chicago for a while and would come home, we would always stop at a shop in the Twin Cities called the Beebalow shop. And the Beebalow shop, can't even remember where it was. I think it was in Minneapolis or possibly Edina. And there was one store, and then there was usually 3 or 4 after that. I think they've all closed at this point. But what I loved is the notion of a Beebalow shop, which I think is French for small things, baubles, trinkets, little bits and pieces. And I love to go there because every little bit and piece in that store, from the cards to the wrapping paper to the pieces of glass to the hand-carved wood, were all these wonderful little baubles, little Beebalow. I think of that because on my desk in my office, I usually keep a collection of pieces of glass. And these are pieces of sea glass. I'm wondering if you know what sea glass is. Sea glass, if you've ever been like on one of the Great Lakes, you'll see these pieces of glass that get washed up on the shore. And they're the refuse from people having thrown bottles or other glass pieces into the water at some point. And then the waves and the sand and the tide does its magic. And washing up on the shore will be all these bits of glass which have been sanded and smoothed and made into these beautiful little art treasures that are called sea glass. And I keep a jar of those on my desk because it reminds me of 2 things. It reminds me of my kids who, when they were younger and were swimming on the shore of Lake Michigan or Lake Superior, I had to be there because I was their parent and my kids couldn't be there by themselves. So to deal with the long days and the boredom, I would walk the beach and I would be looking for sea glass. There would be clear pieces, and there would be green pieces and brown pieces. The most sought after pieces of sea glass are the blue ones, the cobalt blue ones. And so I would collect these, and it was like you were a prospector for gold nuggets. These bits and pieces of glass, which are basically worthless. But when you have them with a candle shining through them, they have these magical, almost stained glass quality that is just beautiful. During these times of COVID, all I need to do is look at that glass filled with those baubles of pieces of sea glass and reminded that I'm on the shore of Lake Superior, or I'm on the beach of Lake Michigan. And I can hear my kids calling out whenever we would drive to Duluth and you would cross over and just start to make that downward descent and you would see Lake Superior for the first time. But I always hear Gitchy Goomy. Because you see, my kids, they never learned to call Lake Superior Lake Superior. They called it by its native name, Gitchy Goomy. Now I think they learned that because it sounds a lot like Goomy Bears. And kids, as you can imagine, loved Goomy Bears. So when they heard Gitchy Goomy, they probably thought all of Lake Superior was filled with gummy bears. But what's amazing during this time of the pandemic is how a little piece, for me, of sea glass can take me into a beautiful place filled with memories of walking a beach, of picking up glass as my job for the day, and most importantly, of touching the lives of my children and the memories of our time together. I don't know if you have things probably around your apartment or in your office that will remind you of a sacred place and a sacred time. Mine is sea glass. Maybe you have a piece of driftwood from your lake cabin, or some bauble or trinket or bit that someone coming into your apartment would say, "Why do you have that junk there?" And all you need to do is say, "Ah, that's how I remember Gitchigumi. And that's how I remember my sacred place." I hope and trust and pray that you have mementos like that can fill you with hope and possibility during this time of pandemic. Blessings on the journey, my friends, and bye for now.